Hello, this is Aaron Dominion, and welcome to the Creation Kit scripting series, Papyrus Tutorials. This episode is the third part in the variables series, Variable Comparison. So what will be covered today, how to compare variables to amounts, and how to compare variables to other variables. Which, they're both the same concept, but it's good to get into the practice of knowing how to do both. So, where to start on comparisons? Let's look at ints and floats, numerical comparisons. So, our comparison operations, we have equal to, we have greater than or equal to, less than or equal, or not equal to. So, equality or equal to, in this case, you compare if one value is equal to another value. Example, 1 equals 1 in the equality test, and this will equate out to be true since 1 is 1. Another example, we have a variable named choice that's assigned 1, and then we're checking in this if statement, which I'll cover later in this episode, if the choice is 1, and it's comparing right there at that double equals. If choice is equal to 1, which it will come out to true. So equality returns true if both values are the same. It will return false if the two values are not the same. So in the example for the true case, assume choice is 1, then if you were checking for choice being 1, it would return true. If you're checking if choice was 0, it would return false. Hopefully that makes sense, but we'll go into live coding just to go over that later. Alright, greater than. So you're comparing the value on the left side and seeing if it's greater than the value on the right side of the symbol. So the examples I have here, you are comparing 2 and seeing if that's greater than 1, which yes, that is greater than 1. In another example, we have choice equal to 1, and then we have choice seeing if that's greater than 0, and yes, again, it's greater than 0. So, returns true if the first value is greater than the second value. So, if we assume choice is 1, choice greater than 0 returns true since 1 is greater than 0. This is important thing to note down here. It returns false if the first value is less than the second or equal to the second value. And an example to show this or part of it returning false, choice greater than 1 returns false because 1 is not greater than 1. It's the same. Also, assuming choice is 1, if you say choice greater than 2, that's of course going to be false because 1 is not greater than 2. Alright, now to go in hand with this, greater than or equal to, it's almost the same as greater than, but if the value is equal, it will return true. Let's go back to our choice example again, and it's 1 again, and then if you say choice is greater than or equal to 1, it will return true because 1 is equal to 1 since there is both the greater than part that evaluates and the equal part that it evaluates. Alright, another example we have here, I just have a variable named happy. Basically the same thing as the choice example, just looking at different values. And now we talked about greater than, so we need to talk about less than. Less than, basically, it's doing the opposite of greater than. You're comparing the value on the left and seeing if it's less than the value on the right. So the example, 1 less than 2, that comes out to be true. Trusty choice again. Choice is less than 2 because 1 is less than 2. So, similar principles here. It returns true if the first value is actually less than the second value. And then it returns false if the first value is greater than the second value, or if it's equal to the second value. So choice, if we had choice equal to 2, let's say for a moment, choice less than 2 returns false, since 2 is not less than 2. If we assume choice to be 1 up in the true example, then of course, yes, it will be because 1 is less than 2. Alright, less than or equal to, it's very similar in the way greater than or equal to is handled, except you're dealing with less than this time. So any value that's less than the value on the left or equal to the value on the left returns true. So choice is equal to 2, choice less than or equal to 2 will return true. And then I brought happy back again just to show you, oh hey, it works in this case. Okay, and now the last one, inequality or not equal to. So you're comparing if the value on the left is not the value on the right. And it returns true if the value on the left isn't the value on the right. So, in my examples I have 1 not equal to 0. Obviously, 1's not 0. Now let's go to another example. Choice is back again, and then we're checking if choice is not equal to 0, which choice is 1, so yes, that will come out to be true. Alright, so it returns true if they're not equal. If the two values are equal, it will return false. So choice not equal to 1 would return false if we had choice equal to 1. Because 1 is 1. It cannot be in a state where it's not equal to 1, if that makes sense. And if that doesn't make sense, we'll be looking at an example in the live coding. String/object comparisons. Your comparison operations for strings or objects is equal or not equal. So they work in a similar fashion to the numerical comparison because you're just comparing to see, oh hey, are these the same things? So let's look at strings first. You have a string, hey Bob, and you're checking to see if it's the same string in this if statement, and it's going to return true because they're both formatted the same. Let's look at the third example here because it's the other string example. Looking at inequality. Message equals no. If no does not equal hey, you would return true, which no is clearly not hey. Oh, I should have said message, not no, in the if statement. Sorry about that. Alright, let's look at the objects example. We're assigning player to game.getPlayer, and then we do a check if player is game.getPlayer. And that would return true because they're both the same thing. Our last example, just to show you an inequality with objects. We assign this variable Dorothy some NPC actor that we have, or the event gives us, and then we do a check if Dorothy is not equal to the player, and that would return true because Dorothy has some sort of other NPC in them, and adds the variable, if that makes sense. Alright, additional note here. When comparing strings, they must be exactly the same, capitalization, punctuation, everything, or else you're not going to get the results you're looking for. So if you're wanting to see if you had hey Bob come in, your check would have to look for the right version of hey Bob if you have that assigned. So if you, let's look at hey Bob with Bob being lowercase. If your script was checking for the uppercase version and your message had the lowercase version, it would never return true because of how it handles strings, and vice versa. Same holds true for objects because every object is unique in some way. We'll get into that though once we get to the objects section of the Papyrus lessons. So, as an example here, the player is not the same as an encounter Dremora Lord. I'm not sure if that's the exact name in the creation kit, but hopefully that helps you for the understanding there. Alright, let's look at Boolean comparisons. So the comparison operators, again, equality, inequality. It works exactly the same. So if we had choice equal to true, and then check to see if it was true, it would return true. Another example, with inequality, we're checking to see if it's false. If it's not false, excuse me, since choice is true, that would return true. And because all comparison operations give truth values, you're only working with truth values, so Booleans are easier to do in variable comparisons. Alright, now we got to the basics of how to see if you... So, each variable comparison that we did, it gives you either a true or a false value. Now, those are okay if you only want to check those cases, but there's some times where you want to check the opposite of what you checked for. Check for what you just checked for and something else, or check what you just checked or something else. So let's look at the logic comparisons, because this will allow us to create more complex variable comparisons. So the logical operators are not and or. So just to be clear, not an and or, but or. Alright, so let's look at the not operation. So whatever truth value, being true or false for whatever statement or variable an expression holds, whenever you apply not to it, it returns the opposite. So let's say we have a variable choice, and it's set to true. When you use the not operator on choice, it will return false, and I give you another example down here with is dead set to false, but then you use the not operator and it returns true. Something I didn't put in the slides, if you did like a if not choice equal to 1, so if choice is 1 and you check for if it is 1, that will return true, but when you apply the not operator, it will then return false. We'll look at not in the live coding just to help with that understanding. Alright, let's look at and. So you're checking to see if two expressions hold true. The first expression is at the left of this and symbol, which is the double ampersand, and then it checks this. It checks the expression to the right. So we have two variables here in this first example: is dead and choice is dead is true, choice is false. We are comparing is dead and choice, and it would return false because choice is false. Another example, player knows is true and choice is true, and then we'd have player knows and choice. Since they're both true, it would return true. In order for an and to be true, both expressions have to be true. Here's a nifty thing. If the condition on the left returns false, it won't look at anything to the right of the and. So let's look at an example of this. Is dead true and choice false? Looking at the above example, we change the order of choice in is dead, and it would return false, and it only looks at the variable choice. It ignores everything else because, oh hey, choice is false. Hopefully that makes sense. Just looking at the slides. If not, we'll go over it in detail in samples and in the programming portion. Now let's look at OR. So it checks to see if two expressions hold true. Again, in a similar fashion, except it looks at the left one or the right one to see if either of them are true, instead of both of them having to be true. So let's look at an example. Is dead is true and choice is false. So we are looking at is dead and choice. Is dead is true, so the statement would return true, even though choice is false. Okay, let's look at another example. Player knows is true and choice is true. Well, They're both true, so it would return true. Assume for a moment that player knows is false. Then it would be false on the left and true on the right. It would still return true. Okay, now let's look at the next bullet point. If the condition on the left returns true, the right expression is never evaluated. Basically in a similar fashion, if we look at and again, if the left is false, the right is never looked at. Well, in the case of or, if the left is true, then it doesn't look at the right side of the expression. So is dead is true, choice is false. Is dead is on the left, choice is on the right. It would return true, and it would only look at is dead, which is faster on your runtime, if you can get it to work that way, but if not, cool. Alright, let's look at mixing value and logic comparisons. Just general rules before we dig into it. Value comparisons can only compare a single value at a time. Example, let's look at our choice again. Choice is either 1, choice is 1, and then you compare it to 1, it's valid. But an invalid example is if you had choice equal to 1 and then you were checking to see if it's 1 or 2. That's the incorrect way to write it. That's like a no-no, big no-no. Logic comparisons can compare multiple statements, so let's look at this example. So we have true, and then and in parentheses, false, or, choice equal to 1. Those are, so the true is one expression, you have the and then you have the next expression, which is the parentheses, and within those parentheses you have an expression, your logic operator, and then another expression being choice equivalent to 1. And that is a valid statement right there. Complex maybe, but it's valid. So how to compare? Well, there's basic logic statements that we have to do in order to start a variable comparison of any kind, or a logic comparison. So we have the end and if block, we have the if, else, and if block, and we have the if, ElseIf, else, and if block. So let's look at the if and if block real quick. So it's used for checking for one specific condition only. So if choice is equal to 0, going back to our choice example, here's another example showing multiple expressions at play. If choice is equal to 0 and player health is greater than 50.0, that's also another valid one that checks only for one condition. And there would be an end if at the end of those, because that's how you designate a block ending. Let's look at the if, else, and if block real quick. So, used for checking a specific condition and performing other logic in all other conditions. So, an example of this. So, let's say we have some choice logic going on, but we only care about one choice, and the rest of it will do something different. So, if our choice is 1, we want to play some music. I don't know why, but there's a function play music somewhere. And then every other time you want to have it spam to the player, help, I don't know what I'm doing. Alright, this can be used in situations. This if, else, and if style can be used in situations where you only have 2 cases. So you check for the first case, that's more important to you, i.e. if the player's dead, you want to play the music. Else, you want to have it display help if they're not dead. Alright, so a lot of your choice logic will be if, ElseIf, else, and if blocks. And these are where you have... Alright, I'm going to throw a number out there. I know I have only 3 on here, but 50 cases. And then you want it to do something different each of those 50 cases. You start from your top, you have it do the stuff, then you have else if to go to your second case. You keep on doing else if, and then you do else either for the very last condition, or if you have all of your choices there and somebody picks something really different, you want to say, oh hey, you're not supposed to do that. And then you end if. So in this example, I did a 3-choice example. So choice is 1. We're going to do the first function that we have, whatever that function name is. If the choice is 2, well, we do the second function, whatever that function is. And then in our else, and I made a note here, choice is 3. It could be 4, but we're going to assume 3, just because we don't have a 4, and it does the last function. Okay. Now that we've gone over all of this, maybe a little too quickly, let's put it all together. So, this time I opened up Creation Kit with variables, and we have a variables comp script, which we're going to have over here in Notepad++, and let's get started. So let's do ints this time. Alright. This is bad style, so don't do this. We don't need to do floats. There's some weird behavior of floats sometimes if the decimal's off, which does a little precision. It has some precision handling, but that's not too important. Let's do bool test and have that set to true. Alright, so we are going to try equality first. So first one is going to be if. Get in the habit with your if statements to do parentheses. It's the better style. It helps you reduce errors when you're coding. So we are checking here to see if ob1 is equal to 1. And if so, message box ob1 is equal to 1. And we're going to end that. So our second one, it will keep doing that. If ob1 is equal to ob3, we're going to print a message box saying that ob1 is equal to ob3. So both those cases, they will actually print those message boxes. Now let's look at this third case. If ob1 is equal to ob2, we want to print the following. This is broken, because it should never be like that. And let's do an else, because we just want to print out that they aren't equal. Ob1 is not equal to ob2. Alright, and let's end that if statement. Now let's go into less than. So if ob1 is less than 2, bug.message box ob1 is less than 2. Okay. Let's get the comment here. First case. If ob1 is less than ob3, this is going to be a case which doesn't work. And let's say this is broken again. And then just do a simple else. And it did an extra parentheses. Alright. Ob1 is not less than ob3. And let's do third case before moving on to just a quick example with less than or equal to. If ob1 is less than ob2, oh, let's switch that around, ob2, ob1. And this is broken, else, because there's only two things here. Ob2 is not less than ob1. Okay. So now let's do our less than equal to. And since it works the same, we're only going to look at one case, which is going to be ob1 less than or equal to ob3. And we want to say is less than or equal to ob3. Again, I said this in the middle last time, but it's important to follow along. It helps you just click these ideas if you had confusion about them in the slides. Alright, so let's do greater than, although we, never mind. So first case, if ob2 is greater than 1, let's do our message box. Ob2 is greater than 1. Okay. Let's do our second case. And our second case is going to be if ob1 is greater than ob2, we want to print that everything's broken. And then we want to do our other case where it's not true and say 1 is not greater than ob2. Okay. Third case, if ob1 is greater than ob3, again, same thing here. This is broken, else ob1 is not greater than ob3. Okay. So let's look at greater than or equal to. And we're only going to do one case on this one. If ob1 is greater than or equal to ob3. Ob1 is greater than or equal to ob3. Okay. So now let's do an equality. Excuse me. So let's do ob1 is not equal to 2. We're going to print that ob1 is not 2. I should say this is the first case. So let's do the next case. Second case, if ob1 is not equal to ob2, then we're going to just print out ob1 is not equal to ob2. Let's do our third case. If ob1 is not equal to ob3, then this should be broken. Again. And I even misspelled it this time. And then, because there's only one other case, and we say ob1 is equal to ob3. Okay. So that's an equality. Now, let's start using logic operators. So, let's do not operator. First case. So let's look at this statement real quick. So ob2 is equal to 2. So that's going to be true. So if that's false, then we want to say greater than 1, else because it would have to, this statement would have to be false in order to get to that message box. Okay. Let's do another case of that. So if it's not ob1, ob3, looking at that example, and this should actually be the one to fire off. So let's say is equal to ob3 via not. Okay. And then let's do a really silly message here. I don't know what I am doing. Okay. And that's enough not. Not's a little confusing sometimes in the operator. Let's look at and operator, because you'll be using a lot more of those. So let's get a true expression here. Not equals to 1. We need to get another set of parentheses, since it's good to encapsulate everything in the parentheses. Remember double ampersand. And so we did that. Actually, we want to do that for this. Of 1 is greater than or equal to op3. Make sure the parentheses are closed. And then we want to print out for this. Ob1 is not 2, and ob1 is greater than or equal to ob3. Let's start using our else-ifs here. Actually, no, because that's true. It's not going to ever get to the else-if. And we say if it's broken there. Okay. Let's go through a few else-ifs here. So, if ob1 not equal to 2, that's going to be a true case. And let's say ob1 not equal to ob3. Let's do an else if. Let's have our ob1 not equal to ob3, just so we get through this else if. And let's say ob1 greater than or equal to ob3. And again, it's going to just go through here and say, oh no, I can't do it. Okay. Let's do another else if. In this case, we just want to have it actually work. And here, we're going to use a not, just to show you the combination of the not together. Ob1 equal to op3. Ob1 is not 2 and not ob1 equal to ob3. Not equal to, excuse me. And then let's do our else case. Debug this, and else if is broke. Okay, there we go. And then end if. Okay. So we did that one. Let's do our OR operator. And let's just look at a simple first case. If, and let's go with our ob1 not equal to 2 again. And OR that with ob1 not equal to ob3. Now, because of what we learned, the ob1 not equals to 2 will be the only thing looked at. And we'll say ob1 is not 2 and Not sure about rest. Let's add our else case in there, just because it's usually good practice to do else's, to do error catching. Okay. Let's do a second case. In this case, let's have it have some not working values. So if that's equal to 2, or if ob1 is not equal to ob3, well, if we ever get this message, then we know something screwed up. Else if ob1 is equal to 2, or let's do something really out there and combine an and in here. So and then ob1 not equal to ob3. So we have that statement, which will be false. And we have this statement, which will be false. So it should be false. And then let's do our final else if. And we're going to keep this broken case here. Then we're going to go and get the condition that will work. And then translate that. We're going to say, not sure about this side, but ob1 is not 2 and not ob1 not equal ob3. And those are the basic operations there, if you see. I created Boolean, we don't really need that for this. Save this and go to the creation kit and save this puppy. And it's saved on the first time. That rarely happens. Okay, I'm going to save this and I will see you in a bit. Alright, we should be seeing a test soon, once this loads. Alright, object 1 is equal to 1, object 1 is equal to 3, ob1 is less than 2, ob2 is not less than ob1, ob2 is greater than 1, ob1 is not greater than 3, ob1 is not 2, ob1 is equal to ob3, ob1 is equal to ob3 via not, ob1 is not 2, and not ob1 not equal to ob3. Not sure about this side, but ob1 is not 2, and not ob1 not equal to ob3. Ob1 is not 2, and not sure about the rest. And you can see all of these are the ones are what we were thinking. And that is it for the testing. And that's it for this episode. Here's my contact information again, and I will have contact information in the video description and links that will help for the topics covered in this video. I look forward to seeing you in the next video, and be sure, if you didn't see all the other variable videos already, or if you don't know stuff about the variable videos, to look at the past videos, or contact me if you have questions about anything that's happened so far. Till next time.